Well, rust or no rust, that's the question that's been talked about a lot. Not really a question. I mean, Kyle Shanahan said he hates more than 2 weeks off, or he hates more than 1 week off, hates 2 weeks off. Steve Young said he hates 2 weeks off. John and I talked about it yesterday on the podcast. John agreed too much time. So the question is it going to be Brock that's going to be rusty on January 20th, 21st, when the 49ers play their first playoff game since he's not playing against the Rams? And I thought I'd start this video with a little trivia question. Do you know who caught Brock Purdy's first touchdown pass? You're about to find out. It was Kyle Juszczyk. I don't know what happened to that football because Kyle threw it away. So if you got that answer right, congratulations. You got that answer right. A Tito's toast to you. And a Tito's toast to Juice. So I saw in the locker room yesterday. All right. Why I don't think Brock is going to be rusty, despite the fact that one of the all-time greats, Steve Young, says 2 weeks off is great. It's just not all great. I went back through the times that Brock Purdy's played on rest. And when he's played on a lot of rest, he's played pretty well. That Miami game, the reason I'm watching that tape is because that's the most rest, really, that he's had before an NFL game. That was not an NFL start. Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, obviously, on the first series, but it was his first game. And I went back through some of his throws in that game. And like this throw happened early in that game. This was crazy. This was a little wild. This was his first series. Brock, what are you doing? No. That was pass interference, and it worked out okay. That throw is not evidence that he won't have rust. That was just him taking a crazy chance. But if you go back and look at that game, his final stats in that game are good: 25 of 37, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 210 yards. We would go on to see much better Brock Purdy games than that first Miami game. But remember, as you can see here, he came into that game. Score was they were trailing. They were down 7-0 immediately. Then they're down 7-3. Moody actually had a I'll get to that. Moody had a field goal, but Brock came out, made some tight throws, ends up throwing the touchdown pass to Juszczyk at the end of this drive, threw a front of the end zone ball to Deebo Samuel. I didn't pull that video. It was a little behind Deebo. There was not a pass interference call. Deebo thought he was interfered with. But I thought that was the shakiest he'd looked early on rest. We don't have a lot of this, but we also have the Steeler game from this year. The Steeler game from this year is not 3 weeks of rest. Okay, the Steeler game from this year, week 1, we wondered, how good is Pittsburgh? The answer was not very, but that was 18 days of rest coming from the handful of throws that he made in the last and third preseason game to the week 1 game against Pittsburgh. The week 1 game against Pittsburgh this year, he was dialed in. He was ready. Sorry, 15 days off. 15 days off. The next will be 18 days. But 15 days off for Pittsburgh, and he was ready to roll. Brock Purdy came out and hit 10 of his first 12 passes in week 1, 2 touchdowns among those 10 completions. Looked excellent. Now, again, Pittsburgh is not going to be as good as whoever they're going to face in their first playoff game, unless it's Tampa. But he made some really excellent throws. Went back and watched the first couple drives of that game. One of his best throws of the year. One of the best Niner plays of the year. There's 100 of them, however many. But one of the best ones, however many are in that category, was this throw to Brandon Ayuk. And the catch from Ayuk. I mean, that's Patrick Peterson, who talked a little trash that week. Peterson's waving, saying, no, Ayuk is out. You'll see on the replay here, Ayuk is not out. Ayuk is in. 1 foot. Does he get the second one down? Yep. This is, a really trusting throw. I think it's probably an even better catch than it is a throw. But this is a 50-50 ball that doesn't look like one. But it's just trusting that my guy is going to get turned around and you're not going to get turned around and you're not going to be able to break that pass up. I'm going right at Patrick Peterson. So, that's one of the plays of, one of the many great throws of the year. This is on a rope to the back shoulder. And I don't know how that ball got through there. I don't know if you would recommend making that throw again, but it was a great throw and a great catch on 15 days rest. His next game is going to be on 18 days rest. And I think the thing that, from a Rust standpoint, football is obviously very physical, but when I think of teams that kind of get a little momentum, get a head start, I think of the NCAA tournament. And there's usually a team from the first 4 games in Dayton. You get to play once, and then you get to play. You don't get to play. You're on the bubble. You have to play. And then you get to the first round. And sometimes that team that played in Dayton and already has a game under their belt gets to the first round and beats somebody who is a higher seeded team, or significantly higher seeded team, and then wins a couple of games. I remember a bad Syracuse team a few years ago got in and then did that. It happens pretty frequently for teams that are the last teams in. And I think part of the reason that happens, it's not because the team that gets beat, the team that did not have to play in Dayton, is rusty. It's because the other team is already used to the pressure of the postseason. And whether you play this week or not, and there's not really even a debate going on right now. This video is not about, is there a debate? Should he be or shouldn't he be? Nobody's debating it. I think most people go, if Trent Williams isn't going to play, if Brock Purdy isn't going to play, then I'm sorry, if Trent Williams isn't going to play, or if your offensive line isn't going to be whole, then just don't play Brock, which I fully support. So the question is, will he be rusty? And my answer to that question is no. I don't think he's going to be rusty at all. Now, they might not be as ready for the moment as their opponent, but I don't think that's going to happen either. I mean, this is a team that's played in a ton of big games. This is a team that has I think more than any other team in the league, understands their Super Bowl window. They've got a bunch of guys on this team that have been close and haven't done it. They've looked for most of the year like a team on a mission, and the Ravens look like a team on a mission too. But I don't think there's anything going to get in their way in terms of not being ready for the Rams or whoever they got to play, the Eagles, right? If they're playing the Eagles in that first playoff game, they're not going to look like an NCAA tournament team who hasn't played yet and the lights are too bright. I mean, that happens. I think that happens in the NCAA tournament. Like, you get a 5-12 game. You think the 5 is any less nervous than the 12 to be there? Hell no. That happens seeds 1 through 16. Like, all those dudes are nervous to play in the first NCAA tournament game. There is so much juice. How could there not be? That's different with this group. This group has been there, done that. This group has been through the ringer. This group has been in the postseason. They've had heartbreaking losses. They've had their backs against the wall and found ways to win. So I don't think it's rust we're talking about here. I think the biggest thing is playing from ahead. It lets Kyle stick to the script where they're a little bit better. But B, if Kyle schemes it, if Kyle has a good first drive ready, if Kyle with his 2 weeks to prepare, now he gets 2 weeks, he really gets 1 week to prepare because you don't really know who you're playing. But with his extra time, depending, I think that opening script, if he schemes Brandon Ayuk open or Kittle open or Debo open or whoever, Purdy's going to hit him. I don't think you're going to see rust at all. I'm not worried about that with Brock. I think we've seen Brock play. Keep in mind, that Steeler game, this throw, like, this is not just Brock Purdy's first game of the year, 15 days since his preseason. This is a guy who got hurt at the end of the playoffs the year before. So he had a long kind of rust-inducing offseason. I saw him in training camp this year. Was he rusty, or was he a guy working back from arm issues, testing the limits? I think in hindsight, of course, there was some rust, but I think more it was a guy working back from an arm issue who wasn't allowed to practice every day. It was out there just trying to make plays against what turns out to be a really good defense. But we'll see. We'll see when he plays. He's going to have to play another really good defense if they get to the Super Bowl, and that'll be a problem then. Will they face an excellent defense before then? I may not. If they see Dallas. But other than that, they may not. So I'm not worried about Brock's rust. A couple of things I wanted to get to, but unrelated to this, so I'll hold off on that for a second. Robbie says he was sitting on the bench for 12 weeks, came in versus Miami, didn't look rusty at all. He, like I said, I mean, he did some. This was insane, but I don't know if that's rust or just Astro. Some people say this from time to time when Brock makes a play like that. People are like, "Oh, there's Iowa State Brock." Bazyman says, now Patrick Queen of the Ravens is saying the Niners offense has tells, just like Patrick Peterson said about Brock. I mean, well, think about this. You game plan for a team, then you dominate that team. You're going to believe that you have found some of the answers to the test. If the Niners had, Bosa basically said it about the Eagles. Bosa said it about Philadelphia. If they play Philly again, Bosa's comments of, we put the blueprint out there of how to play Jalen Hurts, those are going to come back. And it's going to be on Jalen Hurts and that Eagles staff to try and make Bosa look bad. Just like when somebody beats you, it's the reverse. I mean, that Ravens game was the reverse, the Eagles game. Bosa said it about the Eagles. Patrick Queen said it about the Ravens, or about the 49ers. So I would absolutely believe they've got some belief that they've got the tells. But, so much of the sport is I'm going to make you think that you know what you're seeing, and then I'm going to adjust. This is called, they got to adjust. It will be, I said this, I did a video with Shane Vereen earlier on the channel, which you could go watch. And it's not a debate. This is not some take. Like, it'll be the biggest game of Kyle's career, just like any Super Bowl anybody coaches in is. But it's got the added juice of having lost to the Falcons, having lost to the Chiefs, and feeling like this is as good a team as you've had. I mean, it's the best team that Kyle has had, I think, in terms of just being a complete team, given the weapons. It's the second best offense he's coached, on paper at least, to the Falcons offense. But I don't know. I kind of feel like this offense could stand toe-to-toe with that offense. I think that team could stand toe-to-toe with that Falcons team. Fe2O3 simplified formula for iron oxide, if anyone was curious. It's good to know we get some smart people here for when I do something dumb. They haven't found a way to win from behind. 0-38. We know the stat. Trailing by 8 points or more in the fourth quarter. I look at them and think they're going to have to break that run at some point. You have to. How do you not? How do you not? But maybe they won't. Tommy adds he also played well after the bye. Yep, he played very well after the bye against Jacksonville. Played great, in fact, in that game. Sean said, Kyle said Rust is more about practice than game time, and they're practicing Brock like he's playing this weekend, which I think is part of the reason why he's not going to be rusty. I don't think you'll see it at all. I think it's fully dependent on Kyle getting guys open. If Kyle gets guys open, Brock Purdy's going to hit him. Bosa was correct about the Eagles because the Eagles went on to lose 4 out of the next 5 games. Yeah, what Bosa said specifically was basically like, hope the Cowboys get that. Hope the Cowboys saw it too. Worried Trent and CMC won't make it to the Super Bowl. Falcons, it was the Ravens. Did I misspeak? It's been known to happen. That 0-for-38 stat is useless without the context or knowing the baseline compared to other coaches' records. Well, first of all, I don't agree that it's useless without the baseline because, well, I mean, I know that the baseline is going to be better than 0. So I know that you can't get worse than 0, but I'm just trying to look real quick here. Did I bookmark this? I did. Here we go. Mike Sando. A while the other day. I don't have this on my computer, but I'll show it to you here. And Sando was making the same point that Bazyman is here. Niners 0-38, 8+ fourth quarter. Your all-team winning percentage, 7%. 7%. Kansas City has the best winning percentage in that spot, 30%. They're 6-14. Green Bay is second up at 7-34. Seattle, Baltimore, these are teams with Carolina, 1 win or 2 wins in that spot. So Sando adds, no one really wins those games. It helps to be good at drop back passing. San Francisco's scheme plus quarterback weakness equals drop back pass. So he's defending Kyle there. I despite the insanity of that stat, think it's a little fluky, but you just can't deny that it exists. You cannot, and I do not deny that statistic exists, and that if they're down by 8 going into the fourth quarter of a playoff game, everybody's going to hold their breath and go, either he's going to break history or he won't. And if he doesn't, he loses. And being kicked out of the playoffs is worse than being 0 for 39 in that stat. But it's going to be a big moment for him. And it's going to be a big moment for Brock Purdy. And it's when, people hate talking about eye test. Are you just going to have a signature playoff moment or not? Now, if you have no signature, quote unquote, playoff moments because you kick everyone's ass and you hold the trophy, well, guess what? The trophy just as good. The endorsement money counts the same. It's all just, it's fine. So you don't have to do it, but how could you not? I mean, it feels like you're going to have to at some point. The stat is deceiving. It's not like they haven't come back before. Rams 2021, week 18, they came back down 14 in the second half. Well, I that's true. That is good context. But I think part of what it shows is that they need time. They need time, right? It's not really been a big quick strike offense because of the deep ball, the lack of that deep ball. So in some ways, you'd rather be down 14 in the third quarter than down 7 in the fourth. Bizarre as it sounds, depends on how much time is left in the fourth, how good your defense is playing. But that's good. Conceded coffee. That's good. That's good context. Robbie asked, journalist guy aside, fan guy, is this the most confident you've been in the Niners winning the Super Bowl? If not, which team were you most confident in? I was convinced Harbaugh was going to win a championship. I'm more confident in this team than the 2019 team, in part because of the NFC. Philly is reeling. Dallas is not physical enough. Although you guys know, if you've watched this channel or listen to the podcast for a long time, and the last episode of the pod, by the way, you can listen to down in the description below with John, or it's also available to watch from yesterday. Good episode. And we talk a little bit about this there too. But get the bye. Yeah, I would say this is the most confident I've been in a Shanahan team that they're going to win the championship, despite what happened against the Ravens. Green Bay with Rodgers, Kansas City with Mahomes, Baltimore with Lamar. Seems to me all those teams who, with win, had franchise QBs during those situations, unlike San Francisco. Seems like all those teams with wins. I mean, Baltimore didn't, they have not had playoff success. But this guy might be a franchise quarterback. Question from Now Since Here. Doesn't this dude support the Raiders? That's another guy. That's Raider guy. Raider guy is just a irrational Raider homer. That's not me. It's a different person. Looks just like me. But that's Raider guy. The fact that Shanny was able to get to a Super Bowl with Jimmy G has to be one of the greatest achievements of the modern era. Speaking of Harbaugh, by the way, so if you listened or watched the podcast yesterday, you know that I had a prediction for this weekend. And my prediction for this weekend is that before the national championship gets played on Monday night between the Washington Huskies, Kalen DeBoer is the coach of the Huskies, and Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines, that there will be multiple, at least one coaching report. There have been a lot of rumors, but like a report, it'll either be my prediction is either a Jay Glazer Sunday morning or a Adam Schefter Monday morning. And the report will be something along the lines of Team X is, waiting to make a move on head coach until they can talk to Jim Harbaugh. So like the Chargers are going to plan to talk to Harbaugh, or the Raiders are going to plan to talk to Harbaugh. And again, that's not going to be breaking because people have been reporting that stuff. And I've heard Jim wants to go back. I mean, shouldn't say I've heard. I mean, I have, but Schefter said it to McAfee 2 days ago that he thinks Jim still wants to win a Super Bowl. Duh. But I think that's going to be a report. He just hired Don Yee is his agent. Don is an NFL agent. Kalen DeBoer, Washington's head coach, just has hired Jimmy Sexton. Now, I saw their athletics director said, basically, yeah, their new AD, we could have done a deal in last month, but we're just waiting. We're not going to bother. We're going to let this thing play itself out, and then we'll deal with a contract, which, might very well be true. But let's say Kalen DeBoer wins the championship on Monday night. And let's say there's part of Kalen DeBoer that wants to be an NFL head coach, which, by the way, there's part of almost every coach that wants to be an NFL coach. Almost every coach, especially now in the NIL free portal era. If you ask most college coaches with truth theorem, if you could be an NFL head coach, you interested? They would all say yes. So I think what Kalen DeBoer has done at every level warrants looking at him. But if he does it at this level, which he's about to, I think he's going to beat Michigan. But regardless, I think his name is going to be, it wouldn't shock me if like the Chargers are interested in talking to Kalen DeBoer. But all you need is a Harbaugh rumor, and then you're going to get a Kalen DeBoer Michigan rumor. And so it made me think, and I mentioned this I think I mentioned it to John yesterday. If I didn't, I went back and watched it. 2011, Harbaugh is the coach of the Stanford Cardinal. They win the Orange Bowl. There's a bunch of NFL rumors about Jim, and he does not one but 2 interviews, which he knows the questions are coming and is trying to dodge them. First up, on the field, it was Michelle Tafoya.
Wow, what a scene down here. Jim Harbaugh, congratulations. A 12-1 season. You got lifted there. Coming off the field, what did that feel like?
That was great. That was great. All the credit goes to our players. Shane Scove right here. Talk to him. Talk to him and Andrew. Great job defensively.
I'm good. All right. Okay. Well, he's left. Shane Scove, and we'll get to Andrew Luck in just a minute.
Jim.
What again?
All right. So there went Jim. Michelle Tafoya wasn't able to nail him down. He knew that second. He knew the next question was coming, was going to be about the NFL. So then Reese Davis, he had to do it. He asked Jim about winning. Jim talks about the players, and then he says this.
What kind of timetable will you use to make your future decision?
I just ask you to respect the game and respect what these players did tonight. It's all about them. I love you guys. I'm proud of you. You're champions. That's what we said when we started this thing. Cardinal campaign to a championship. Way to go. Thank you.
And then he walks off. So that was that. So I don't know I think with DeBoer, he's probably not getting asked that question. With Jim, he might get, because there might be a report, but I think there's probably going to be a report about Jim before the game. And then I think that means there might also be a Kalen DeBoer report before the game. All right, back to this. Fun fact, Super Chat. Thank you. Jimmy G has 13 fourth quarter comebacks according to the Pro Football Reference site. Mahomes has 16 fourth quarter comeback game-winning drives in comparison. All right. Since you paid $5 to tell me that, I'm going to believe you looked it up. People are talking about. Yeah, Armstead. I did see the headline. I didn't listen to it. I guess John Lynch said today that they're hoping he's back for the playoffs. That is that's a major injury, and from a Niners perspective, it makes them all the more thankful that they spent time that they spent money to sign Javon Hargrave in the offseason. Dominic, 5-spot in a super chat. So what are some predictions in free agency? Anyone you can see them getting off of? Seems like this team will stay intact for another year. I do think the team will stay intact for another year. I don't really expect, after watching it play out, and we talked about the possibility, do you go Chase Young? Do you go Brandon Ayuk? After watching it play out, I would not expect Chase Young to be back. He's helped them, but I thought initially that position's so hard to get that if they had to choose between them, they would choose him. I think the real decision would be, do you trade Ayuk? And I credit to John, who has said this for a while. The decision is Ayuk first, like for picks that get you a blue chip offensive lineman. But after watching Chase Young as a Niner, and he clearly helps them, but you would choose Brandon. I think you would have to choose Brandon Ayuk over him. So, who are the free agents out there? Are you going to go get? I mean, I'm just looking at a list here. Danielle Hunter, Brian Burns will be too expensive. I don't think you're not going to sign a corner. You're not doing Jalen Johnson. He has not signed an extension, right? So I don't know. It's a good question. I've not really thought about it in terms of other people's free agents. I do think from their perspective, I don't think there's going to be a lot of turnover there. Is there some pass rusher out there that they kind of like? Remember, they tend to not go for the top 10, edge rusher that's going to cost them $17 million a year. And they can't anyway. It's going to be some guy who needs a little bit of a bounce back that they can try. And, this year didn't go great, partly because Drake Jackson not being a impact player at all for them really hurt, I think, the plan for this team. Super chat. Fun fact. Mahomes came back down 24-0 in the playoffs to win. Also 2 rings. Yeah, we cannot compare. They need another RB1. Would be crazy to give this CMC workload for another year. Another RB1? Well, they'll keep Elijah Mitchell around. Jordan Mason had a nice run in that Dolphins game. That game, McCaffrey got a touch and then Mason got a touch. Should I go back and look? Maybe Christian got hurt, but yeah, they will always have running backs, and they'll do a good job. Like Kyle does a good job with them. I'm not weirded by that. The symbolism between the Harbaughs, the Niners, the Ravens, Flacco, all the things from 11 years ago is somewhat profound. Seeing the Ravens again with a Harbaugh, with Jim on the sidelines wearing a Ravens hat. You would think maybe in the booth wearing just all black or a Raiders. What if how about this? That game is being played at Allegiant Stadium. So if Jim becomes the Raiders coach, it's his stadium. John's in there. If John twisted the knife when he beat Jim the first time, that one would be worse because Jim's not playing in this game. But I think against his former team, he'd be rooting for John pretty hard. But man, in his stadium, I don't think you can walk around, even if it's your brother, in a Ravens hoodie or hat. I've seen John in a Michigan, John Harbaugh's worn Michigan gear before, but he doesn't coach against Michigan. I don't think Jim could wear a Ravens hat. I mean, he could, but I don't think he would wear a Ravens hat if he's the coach of Michigan, no biggie. If he's the coach of the Raiders and that game's being played at Allegiant Stadium, no, he can't. If you didn't see it, there's a YouTube shorts I put out on this channel, also on my Instagram. I had a little conversation with Brandon Ayuk. Went up to him in the locker room on Wednesday. I said he was shooting hoops. They shoot a lot of basketball in the locker room. And if you watch that YouTube short or the Instagram, Guy Haberman on Instagram, go follow on Instagram. If you go watch it, you can hear the ball bouncing in the background the whole time. And Brandon's like, what do you want to talk about? Not in a rude way at all, but just like people come up to me all the time and say, do you have a second? And then ask me some whatever. So what do you want to talk about? I said, well, I want to talk about blocking. And then I just showed him, I was like this. I showed him the video of Patrick Queen. He was like, okay, we can talk about that. So go check out Brandon Ayuk on that subject. Chad with some context here. Let's look at this context, Chad. Brock is 64% throwing the deep ball this season, breaking the NFL record. And Kyle is 0 for 38 with other quarterbacks. Context matters. That stat includes Brock. But since you brought up some, let's see if I can pull up some good. We've done some of this before, and I like it. Passing depth, 20 air yards or more. The deep ball, we're going to filter out a bunch of guys, and let's check some completion percentages. And Chad's right on this stat. Not only is Chad right that Brock is 63.8% on 20 air yards or more. That's what this deep ball stat is 20 air yards. CJ Stroud is second at 56.9. So if we round them both up, 64%, 57%, that's 7% better. Dak is 49%. Now Dak is throwing a lot more. Dak's thrown 71 deep balls by that category. Brock has thrown 47 deep balls by that category. So a significant increase. But, this is where I test, and we could go through all the throws, but it's not just volume. If you watch Dak, he will throw YOLO balls, 50-50 Hail Mary type. He'll throw some YOLO balls. Like, I'm just throwing up. You don't really see Brock throws it when it's there and otherwise makes a smart play. And that's a credit to Brock. Partly that'll always be dependent on who your receivers are. I'm just looking through the list here, but that's one thing you've definitely noticed with Dak specifically. He will throw, and he doesn't just throw YOLO balls like whatever. It's 3rd and 9. We're in midfield. We're going to punt anyway. YOLO to the 10. If it gets picked, who cares? He'll throw it in like some weird spots at times where it must drive McCarthy crazy. And obviously he's had a great year, but he throws picks on some deep balls that you're like, that was not necessary. And you could still hit a bunch of other deep balls and just eliminate those types of throws. So this is significant. Dak is 10 touchdowns, 1 pick. Brock is 11 touchdowns. In fact, Brock leads the NFL. Touchdown passes, air yards, 20 yards or more. Leads the league, 11 of them. Tua's got 10 of them. Trevor Lawrence has 10 of them. Dak has 10 of them. Baker and Jalen Hurts have 9. Justin Fields and Jordan Love have 8. Whatever. Nobody would have guessed that, I don't think, at the beginning of the year. Now, the percentage of his throws that are deep balls, for him it's 10%. For Dak, it's 13%. So, or actually, it's like 11% for Brock, 13%. There's a lot of numbers. But anyway, yeah, we've been talking about that stuff all year. But that's a good number. It's a good stat. But I also think that, the way that Niners throw the deep ball is different than the way that sometimes you need to when you're trying to come from behind. So is that stat legitimate? 100%. Is it a credit to Brock? Yes. Is it a credit to Kyle? Yes. I mentioned this like a month ago. I talked to an active NFL quarterback, and I said, what's the biggest reason the Niners are so good at throwing the deep ball? And his answer, active NFL quarterback, his answer was the way Kyle schemes, and specifically his feel for timing, when he throws, when he takes those shots, how well he understands defense. So, I did this video with Shane Vereen earlier that I mentioned, and somebody said, God, Shane knows a lot about the Niners. He was with the Niners for a week this year in training camp as a assistant coaching role. Maybe it was 2 weeks, whatever it was. I think it was a week. And he was, if you caught that video, raving about Kyle. So, get mad at that stat if you want, or that insight if you want. That's what an active NFL quarterback told me about why they hit so many deep balls. And when you watch them, you do understand that it's not, they're not throwing over the top 40, 60-yard bombs to Justin Jefferson, one-on-one, 50-50 ball. When you do take those chances that maybe you don't take in other spots because you're in a desperate situation. So, it's a legitimate it's not a criticism, but it's a legitimate observation to say that air yard stat is special, but also they do not run the type of offense that is built to come from behind. Like, it's just not the primary skill of that offense, but it's fine. They got a run game that complements and a great defense, and they're one of the 2 Super Bowl favorites, and legitimately. And I've been picking them to win the Super Bowl, and I'm not alone. Right, I'm not on a limb here, whatever that's worth to you. But there when you watch it, you can see that there are some differences, and for them, more often than not, it takes 5-6 plays to get the ball down the field. Can they hit some big ones? Absolutely. Absolutely. Is it mano a mano, one-on-one, go ball, put it over the top? Sometimes, but not a ton. That's why that Ayuk throw against Washington was so fun to watch. It was one-on-one, over the top, go get it. Thoughts on Harbaugh as the Raiders coach? Love it. I think it'd be great. Let's see. What would be? Yeah, I love Harbaugh. They would immediately be better. They'd immediately be more special in terms of just like a league brand, all that kind of stuff. The Niners come from behind stat is my biggest concern going to the playoffs. And I think Nolan it's not really the stat that's the problem, right? It's just understanding how hard it is for them to score in 2 plays, 3 plays. Ignore the stat. Fine. Ignore the stat. The whole league's shit. But yeah, that's fine. We're spending too much time on that stat. It's crazy. Like, you have to acknowledge it's crazy. Oops, wrong one there. Where'd that go? Lost it. Anyway, all right. That's that. That's that for this. Thanks for hopping in. If you're here right now, appreciate you very much. Sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka. Hit that like button. On your way out the door, just hit the like. You got to be signed in on YouTube to hit the like. But if you're not signed in, what are you doing? When you're signed in, now you start getting all your customized, personalized, suggested videos, which is the best way to live on YouTube. Let the algorithm do the heavy lifting for you, but you got to be signed in for that. And when you're signed in, if you're signed in right now, hit that like button, and then you let the algorithm work for us as well here on this channel. So we appreciate that very much. Subscribe to the channel, and that helps the channel grow too. So thanks. Have a great weekend. Talk to you Sunday, maybe before then if something happens. Who knows? But I guess there are couple good game on Saturday night. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging. Enjoy the weekend, and talk to you soon. Later.